Hello everyone, welcome to our webinar. My name is Andrew Townsend. I'm the Campaign Marketing Manager here at eLearning Brothers. Today we're going to be talking about driving system adoption through learning in the flow of work. This should be a very informational and useful webinar for all of you that are here today. We hope that you get what you needed to out of it. This session will be recorded and we will email a copy of the recording to everybody that registered, so you can be looking for that in your email later today. We'll also be posting it on our blog at blog.elearningbrothers.com, so you can go there and view it at your leisure. If you have questions or comments during the webinar, please feel free to use the questions panel. That's part of the GoToWebinar control panel there, and we'll get to as many of your questions as we can. All right, so we have fantastic guests with us today. We've got Senior Custom Solutions Consultant Richard Harmon and Whatfix Senior Manager Chintan Patel. Thank you both for being here, and we're excited to hear what you have to share. And without further ado, I'll go ahead and turn the time over to you, Richard and Chintan.
Okay, thank you. No further introduction other than that is necessary. I have a list of discussion points. We're going to spend the least amount of time on these, less time on conceptual information, methodology, the why. We want to spend more time on the actual use case, specific concrete examples of how digital adoption technologies are used by specific clients, and to be able to address any of those questions. And so I would encourage you, as we're going through this information, that you post questions as you have them. We'll address them in the context of what we're talking about. So what is digital adoption, why we should look at it, and what's the reality of it, how much is really happening, how do people really prefer to learn, talk a little bit about, we'll do some polling questions on traditional methods that people are using, and then touch on designing in the moment of need, what that means and what it looks like, and then we'll go into a digital adoption scenario and use case. So first off, and I added this, what is digital adoption? Then I added in learning and development, because digital adoption actually is a larger umbrella, and we're specifically addressing learning and development. Talks about it means achieving a state in which users gain the ability to use the digital tools or software or platforms as they are intended, and to the fullest extent possible to realize the value of the software investment. So companies are making large investments in software, and if they're not used as intended, the value won't be realized. But if you do realize the value, then that becomes a competitive advantage, which was the intention of the software in the first place, through improved business performance, operational efficiency, customer service, data quality, even employee satisfaction, reduction of frustration, and frictionless learning, which I'll talk about a little bit later, as well as responsiveness to change. Why look at digital adoption? These are a series of polls were taken as to why companies chose to implement an ERP, enterprise relationship platform. And you'll see that all of them have some sort of intended goal as far as better serving the customer, reducing working capital, improved business process. So these were the why of why they chose to do it. And the real question is did they realize these things? Because if you're spending millions of dollars on software and you're not achieving these intended goals, there's a gap, there's a problem. And so let's do the first polling question is, what is the digital adoption reality? This is taken from research. I'll let Andrew post that.
Yep, so you guys can click right on the screen. Which of these statistics is true according to research by Panorama Consulting Services found in their ERP report?
Let those results come in.
This is really interesting. 52% of ERP initiatives fail to deliver expected benefits. And I shortened all of these. So I'm sure there's more detail on each of these, but I guess we're looking at percentages here.
Yeah.
All right, so it looks like the majority of you have voted. We'll give you about 4 more seconds for those of you that have not voted yet. All right, and here's those results. So of our audience, 57% said all of the above, 19% said the 74% of ERP projects cost more than expected, 14% did that first 52% that says they fail to deliver expected benefits, and then we had a split 5%, 5% for the 61% and 59% options.
And the actual data from the poll is all of the above. All of those come into play as far as the reality of digital adoption. From a learning and development perspective, another poll was taken by Gartner saying that L&D leaders believe that 82% of them believe that retaining and reskilling is a key to addressing a growing skill gap in the workplace. And 59% believe that the employee skill gap is growing. It's actually increasing. And then another statistic they mentioned was 90% of knowledge acquired in a classroom is forgotten within a week, which is universally felt. Yeah,
That's
people
wild.
just don't remember. They don't. And there's reasons why. There's follow-up and reinforcement, those types of things. Another poll was taken by Bob Mosher of Apply Synergies, gathering data about how people prefer to learn and remember and apply system performance challenges. Now, this was their preferences. This is kind of interesting. So he noticed that the number one way that people like to learn is by trial and error in the workflow. And the second most common reason was on-the-job training, learning on the job. And then third was coaching and mentoring. And these are all very experiential learning types of activities. The remaining categories that weren't that high as far as preference or how people really learn are the ones we really spend most of our time on. We create virtual classrooms, we create e-learning, we create instructor-led training. So there's a little bit of a disconnect between how people prefer to learn and how we're choosing to spend our time actually training them. And there's reasons why we spend time on formal learning. It's more controllable. Budgets are assigned for that. And experiential learning and technologies until recently hadn't evolved to the point where we could actually manage, track, and deliver and report on experiential learning or learning in the workflow of work. These are some of the traditional methods we use. I'm going to have Andrew set up the second polling question as far as which ones do you use the most. When you think of an instructor-led training and then in a sandbox where you're in a classroom, you're in a stage site, where you can actually work within the application and work through instructor-led training materials, but it's not a live environment. You're not doing your job. Yeah, same thing with VILT, virtual, where you may have access to a sandbox, but you're going through a virtual experience with an instructor. Common is the online tutorials, or people are using screen capture software to create a simulated environment to walk people through, either to demonstrate them, walk them through with learner guidance, or to have them do it without learner guidance, and then paper-based self-study, or as well as a blended solution. And all of these are involved in methodology to prepare people to eventually use a system live, but they're not necessarily in a system they're using, or specifically they're not doing their job because they may be in the system they're using. So the second polling question is having to do with how you currently use the different training methodologies to address your system adoption needs. Curious to find out what people are doing.
And now this one is a select all that apply, so you can click on more than one. Are you doing online training, simulated system environments, classroom-based training, maybe an application sandbox training, virtual instructor-led training in a sandbox, application embedded electronic performance support? I'm watching these votes come in. I guess they're not votes. These polls. Their responses come in, and it's pretty spread evenly. But as more and more come in, there's definitely more. There's a couple leaders in here, which is great. We'll give you guys a couple more seconds. Looks like there's still several people that haven't participated, so if you'd like to, now's your chance. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, here's the results. So the largest one, 70%, is that last one, paper-based tutorials, job aids, and reference guides. But those are probably being used in tandem with a lot of these other things because it's essentially compliant. So we've got online training in simulated system environments, classroom-based training with application sandbox training, and virtual instructor-led training in sandbox. The lowest one, with only 26% having selected, is application embedded electronic performance support.
Okay. Which is expected. The other thing I wanted to touch on is what we refer to in the industry as the 70-20-10 principle, where 10% of learning actually takes place with formal training. And what we just described to you in that poll was a whole series of examples of different types of formal training. And yet 20% and 70% of actual learning takes place after you leave the classroom or the screen, if you will, from a simulated environment. And yet we struggle to actually address that level of preference for learning experientially. And what's happened is technologies have advanced enough that we've been able to actually integrate the learning experience within the job experience, especially related to software and platforms. There was a poll taken by Burson where he identified leading practices of high-performing organizations who implement learning embedded in the flow of work. And these are some of the principles. And I can actually get you a copy of this report if you would like to read more detail. But there's these 3 guiding principles of anticipating the worker's needs for understanding what they do, accelerating learning opportunities by placing meaningful tools and information in the flow of work. We're going to show you specific instances of that through the Whatfix technology, augmenting their work performance with actionable and relevant data, being able to actually link content that you've created to the workflow through the Whatfix tool, and then recognizing, encouraging, and leveraging learning within the flow of work to empower and reward employees. Instead of going to classroom events, you literally learn while you're doing your job. So, interesting concepts. Another principle is what they refer to as designing for the 5 moments of need. And when people are learning, especially related to systems, you're onboarding people when they're learning for the first time. And this is where we sometimes think of formal instruction, or when they want to learn more. You need to have people become super users. And then they actually get on the job, and then there's a need where people are trying to apply and remember what they learned, where they say, oh, I wish I'd taken notes in that class or whatever it is, and they need help to remember what they learned previously. And the other time is when people want to learn is when something goes wrong and make a mistake, and they're trying to figure out how to solve that problem. And the last area of need is when there's change management, systems are rolled out, and people need to learn how to do a new business process in a different way based upon technology changes. And one of the challenges is that when we create training for people for formal instruction, we usually start very broad, and we start with training objectives, and then we set up context, and we set up what we call conceptual practice to try and make it relevant and meaningful. And a lot of times we give them opportunity to go into deeper detail, and then eventually have them go through the steps and process of learning that. And that's usually what takes place in a non-workplace environment, where you're in a classroom, where you're going through system simulations and things like that. And in reality, when you're at the moment of need, when you're on the middle of performing a task in the job, you need to start with the actual steps of what to do in order to provide performance support. And then you can allow people to dig deeper, do practice demos, but ultimately they need help right at the point of need, where they need to create an opportunity if you're using Salesforce or a new contact or whatever the software application may be. And so this is sort of this pyramid, this opposing pyramid of methodologies for actually preparing to help people in the point of need. Let's do a third polling question before we turn it over to Chintan, who's going to we're going to talk a little bit about system adoption, digital adoption platform use case with a specific application, and show it to you from a learner's experience, as well as from an author's experience who's actually creating content, as well as an administrator's experience who's looking at the back-end analytics of what the results are of people interacting with content in the flow of work. Let's do the polling question first about experiential learning and your plans or your current use for learning in the flow of work.
So yeah, are you currently using or planning to use experiential learning or systems training and adoption? Or systems training and adoption. So are you currently using it? You've got a plan, but you haven't implemented it yet. Go to webinar, cut that. That should say, have not yet implemented the plan, but it missed the AN. Have interest in it, still 6 to 12 months out from, I cut that one off too.
Serious consideration.
Yeah, there you go. And you don't really know how to execute on it, but you would like to. All right, looks like most everybody has voted. Again, I'll give you about 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So the largest one is that third one. 39% said they have interest, but they're still quite a ways out from serious consideration.
Mm-hmm.
The next largest was the bottom one. Don't really know how to execute it, but would like to. I mean, because this is a great idea, but how do you do it?
Yeah.
And then 19% are currently using it, which is great, and 6% have formulated a plan, but they haven't yet implemented it.
Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pass this screen over to Chintan, and we're going to begin to discuss digital adoption, a specific digital adoption scenario, and what typically takes place, and what could take place with learning in the flow of work.
All right. Thanks, Richard. Hello, everyone. This is Chintan here. I lead our channel alliances for Whatfix, and really excited to have the opportunity to showcase you the platform, the solution, and help you understand more from the end user, the learner's journey side of things, how a digital adoption platform can really provide the end user experience that takes care of their entire life cycle. Just a quick snapshot of how the user's journey can be transformed, right? With these overlays, think about them as GPS for any of these applications. What we are able to do is we are able to provide contextual, interactive, real-time, and autonomous training and help that any user would require while using these systems. And when you look at the entire life cycle, right from the very first time that a user lands on the system, or we need to train them on a continuous basis based on changes in business processes, based on changes in the application. What if it's an extensive ERP where we have to really educate the learners on what the form field guidance should be? How can we really provide them with the change management program so that when they are coming across these new systems, we can make sure that they are as comfortable to start using it as they want to. Last but not the least, what can we really provide from an automation standpoint as well so that we are making users more and more productive? So that in essence, team, is what we're going to cover in today's demonstration from a learner's journey. As Richard alluded to, we'll also take a peek into the administrator side of things. And as authors, as learning content creators, how easy can it be to create this content using our authoring platform? Very important would be to monitor all the content and try to understand the business intelligence. What's the user engagement? How often the users are coming and consuming this training? If at all there is scope of improvement, how can we really enhance all the training guides that we have built and make it more relevant and more personalized for the users? And last but not the least, what can be the different adoption ways in which we can make sure that the end goal of driving the real user adoption can be achieved? So that's something, team, that we're going to see in today's demonstration. Without much ado, let me directly take you to today's demo, where I've chosen Salesforce CRM to give you a demonstration of this platform. But please bear in mind that this can be deployed on any or all system within the enterprise. It can be a web-based application. It can be a desktop or a thick client-based application. So no matter what kind of a system it is, we would be able to deploy what we call as overlays or on-screen guidance so that the users can start getting the self-serve that we all want them to do. So for the next 10-15 minutes, team, I have my Whatfix overlays on top of Salesforce. So what you're going to see in the form of these widgets or experiences, they're all powered by Whatfix. So let's start with the first user journey. A new user coming on the Salesforce for the first time. So the premise is instead of a user accessing a blank screen, you can provide an onboarding experience. This is a proactive welcome pop-up where you can onboard them with videos, slideshows, any rich multimedia information. And then there is a Let's Get Started option. So as you can see, the moment I click on Let's Get Started, a series of balloon tips called as on-screen guidance, right? Think about them as step-by-step guides gets triggered. And as Richard was highlighting the premise, this is where we are really helping the users learn in the flow of work. So while I, as the user, am completing my task, In this case, we are taking a simple use case of how to change my password on Salesforce. While I'm doing this task, I'm also being learned and getting the real knowledge in real time. So that's a key advantage of how we can really provide the step-by-step guides. And as you can see, it's just following the user journey. There is absolutely no cognition. All the user needs to do is follow the instructions and complete the step-by-step guides. So that's how easy it is that for every single step across the user journey, we are able to provide what we call as the on-screen guidance. I'm not going to change my password because I just did, but hope team, you understand what the premise over here is. We are providing them with step-by-step guides in the flow form. So now that we've onboarded, the next logical extension is to provide them with some kind of core training. And the way we have designed the systems training is by making bite-sized training applicable to them at the point of need. So what you're seeing in the form of this task list, think about this widget as an ignition point for a lot of these tasks. It can be a mini learning management system that you can think of. And over here, depending on the role of the user, so who I am on CRM, whether I'm the manager or I'm an individual sales rep, I can have a various kind of tasks assigned to me. It also depends on where I am, right? So this way it's highly contextual. So all I do is I click on this task and you see the walkthrough gets triggered. And again, with the same premise of making sure the users can learn in the flow of work, this flow takes me across that business process. And all I do is I just follow the step-by-step set of instructions. So just for the brevity of this demo, I'll just enter the opportunity name. I'll put in a certain close date. You see there are different widgets also that allows me to make sure that the information is filled accurately. And once I'm done with that, it's asking me to click on save. And that's how easy it is for us to train the learner on any business process on the application. While that is happening in real time, as a learner, I can see exactly what's the progress that I've made, how many tasks are remaining, but more importantly, from a trainer's point of view, the training teams, the change management teams in charge can monitor this learning in real time through our dashboard. So we provide an analytics dashboard that really allows you to monitor it in real time. I'll also cover that in a few minutes. So now that we have talked about training, I'm sure a lot of you would have a question. What if the user forgets that business process? How can they go back and reignite that flow? Or is there a way for us to provide some kind of on-demand help? So this is where what we provide is a self-help widget. Think about this as a library of help, as a repository of help that's always available to the user 24/7, 365. So instead of going outside the application and consuming a job aid or consuming a PDF or any passive piece of information coming back with all that cognition, we can have a very rich contextual library that is right within the application. It's frictionless. And all the user needs to do is select that guide. And now the flow gets triggered. We also allow the ability to embed videos right inside so that the user can consume it.
Get started setting up Sales Cloud Essentials.
Or if the user wants, he or she can always go and follow the step-by-step set of instructions and make sure we are able to help them complete that journey. So this is how, in essence, team, we are able to make sure that the users are always able to get the right piece of learning information at the point of need. One of our other big postulate team is we are very cognizant enterprises would have their existing assets on these systems. So one big differentiation about Whatfix is we are also able to bring all that external knowledge-based content in the form of existing documentation, videos within the application, making it contextual. So here it's not just these flows, we can also link to an external help documentation. We can also bring external multimedia within the application. So the key advantage over here is everything is now being brought in contextually. So based on the user, they do not need to find a piece of video that is buried across 100 other videos. We are able to bring them in a very contextual way. And as you can see, I'm in the leads tab, and all the help over here pertains to leads. But the moment I am in the opportunities tab, And if I were to go on the same self-help widget, you'd see that now the help is all relevant to opportunities. So that's a big contextual way in which we are able to make sure that the users are always having the right segmented information. I'll take a pause here before I continue with the next steps. Richard, any questions in the chat that we need to address, or we're good so far?
I don't see any questions in the chat, but this is showing onboarding for a particular tool. I'm curious about how this would work for other learning that might not be in an app. So how would it work if you were just using it for like getting to know a not something as complex as Salesforce, but maybe you're registering for a sign up page. What if I want all of my users to sign up for something and they just need to sign? Was it just as easy? Is it a simple install?
That's right. There are no restrictions. You can deploy these overlays on top of an entire ERP application, should I say, or you can choose to deploy it just on a single sign-up page. And when the user is on that page, you are able to provide them with proactive nudges. So no restrictions whatsoever, Andrew, on where can this be deployed.
Okay, so he's been walking through specifically for internal training, but because of the nature of the technology, this could be used with customer facing as well. If you've got a website or a technology where you want to guide people through using your website or your application, it's used a lot that way, as well as internal training, people who service the customer.
Are you going to be showing us any of the back end, how to upload materials or using the tool rather than just where it's being used on the front end?
Absolutely, and that's the next segue. But before I do that, Andrew, just a couple of very interesting use cases I wanted to address, more on the lines of change management, because as training teams, we are always focused to make sure that we are able to communicate this change in a better way to the end users. So the incumbent way, whenever there is change on these systems, is the training teams are sending emails, right, and expecting the users to consume that piece of information and understand the change. We see there's a big disconnect. The way we are addressing these challenges is we have different experiences to proactively highlight or communicate change on the UI. So as you can see, there is this red pulsating icon called beacon, which basically acts as a forcing function to capture users' attention. So if there is a new dashboard, you can associate a beacon on top of that. And then there is a flow that gets triggered once a user clicks on that. And what you can do is, if there's a new feature that you have rolled out, or if there are any changes made to the application, you can have this beacon with the flow associated and proactively make sure that the users are communicated the change. So that's a very powerful way in which you can do that. The other way to relay the same piece of information to the users is through what we call a smart pop-up. So especially if you want to relay important announcements, you can do that directly via the application medium, so that now the moment the users are logging into their systems, they're able to understand or read about whatever important note that has been sent across to them. Along with that, we also have a lot more capabilities, right? We have seen that teams want to conduct surveys, they want to understand how the usage is on this application. So that is something that we also allow. If there are surveys that you want to run on these systems, if you want to take feedback, we also have the mechanisms for you to do that. We have APIs, so if you want to link something like a Survey Monkey within this, we can also do that as well. So it's extremely robust in a way that when you look at a system, whether it's a new system that has been recently rolled out, or whether it's an existing system where we are retraining the users, we are providing them with the right help, these kind of widgets or experiences can make sure that the users always have the right and handy information. So that was on the end user experiences side. Now I'm sure all of you would be really curious to see how is this learning content created. So the creation happens through step one of just a simple browser extension. This is all you need to start building these guides. This browser extension can be deployed across browsers, and as you can see, right now I'm just going to trigger this extension. This is the authoring platform. It's asking me what would I want to create, flow, smart tips, or beacon. So I'll just click on flow. And again, this can be created on any application. So just because we are on Salesforce, I'll take a simple use case of how to create a lead. All right, and what I do is I click on the Add tab. So once I do this, you'd notice, team, that my entire screen becomes interactive. So this is where Whatfix is reading the exposed HTML components that any application exposes. And all we do is we follow the user's journey, right? So the first step is for the user to click on leads. I do this, and again, Whatfix has this proprietary element detection algorithm. So there's no heavy lifting required from the author. The moment you click, we capture that HTML. You can also go and change the positioning of the tooltip if you want it to be here. Everything is done from the UI. There are multiple step completion rules. Again, the algorithm has automatically detected it's a click of an element. So here the step completion rule is it moves forward after user clicks in. But as you can see, we also have multiple options. If it's a hover over element, if it's a input field, if it's a selection change, all of these can be auto triggered based on the user journey. So with just a few clicks, I have my first step of the walkthrough in place. So let's proceed with the user journey. Now I click on leads, and what I do is I go back to my authoring platform and I click on Add tab. Again, you'd notice that my entire screen becomes interactive. So now the next step in the user journey is I want to click on new. So I click on new, and again, behind the scenes, the tooltip is captured. I can go change the positioning. I can keep it over here, here. I can also put an additional description. And as you can see, there is a rich text editor. So if you want to add links, if you want to embed videos, if you want to insert an image, you can do so right over here. So again, there is not a single line of coding required, team. Everything is happening right over here, and I just follow the user journey.
Just and all of that kind of editing can be done. So all of that editing can be done by the L&D employee, or does it have to be done by a Whatfix employee?
Yeah, and that's a great question, and that's a big focus area, right? We have designed this tool from the grounds up to make sure that our real target is the instructional designers. It's the L&D audience who really can go and build these content for their enterprise users. So we have made the UI extremely user-friendly. There's no coding expectation whatsoever. Even someone who is as non-tech savvy as I am can go and start building this. The premise is very simple. As long as we have those business processes or SOPs, we can just go and start building them. And just to add to that, it also reflects on the implementation timeline, right? So the time it takes to build these guides and deploy it, we're looking at a matter of weeks. We're not even looking at months. And that's a key advantage. So just on the last step, I'll close out my flow. I'll add one last step. I'll click on save, and there you go. Our 3-step process is ready. I go and I add the step. Now what you'll notice, team, is the moment I click on maximize, you'd see all the 3 steps over here. So this is another big advantage. Everything is highly modular. You see there is step 1, step 2, step 3. So tomorrow, if the application goes through any change, you do not need to rework the entire flow. All you do is you just go to a specific step. You can just edit it. You can reselect the element. You can change the description. You can change the positioning of the tooltip. And then all you do is you just go ahead and save it. And then once you save it, there's real magic that happens. So let me just go ahead and save it for you. So once I save this flow, I can view this flow. So once I view it, my flow is over here in my dashboard. So what has happened, and this is something that really excites our L&D audience, you not only have this step-by-step flow, but you also have multi-formats that are automatically created behind the scenes without any additional effort from your side. So for the same flow, you have a slideshow that you can use. And again, this is a slideshow that is dynamic, powered by HTML, so you can host it on your knowledge base. There's an article that is auto-created. For the same flow, there's also video that we automatically create. Imagine that today's day and age, we are using so many licenses just to create one video. But now you're looking at a platform where you build a flow and we automatically create all these multi-format assets. Here's how that video looks
How to
like.
create a lead. Click leads.
It also has a voiceover. So this was one of our most requested feature.
Click new. Additional description.
So now all these assets
Clicks.
are all dynamic. They're all ready for you. There's also a downloadable PDF for the same flow. You know, during the polling question, Andrew, Richard, we saw that a lot of audience still relies on job aids, on these quick reference guides. So now we have made their lives even more easier, right? All these documentations are auto-created with our platform. And again, as you can see, it's very visual. So the users are not reading through complex information. It's a screenshot of that page, and it's a screenshot of where the action should be and what the description is. Very powerful. And then we also have a URL. So a lot of times, if someone is struggling with how-to guides, our teams, our enterprise teams are just sending this URL so that now you can just put it on the user system and then they can have a quick live demo of it. So this was the flow that we just created. If you want, we can do a quick see live as well. And what that see live does is it will simulate the flow in real time. So again, just to emphasize, team, the flow that you build is now auto-created into all these formats: a slideshow, article, video, a downloadable PDF, and even a URL. And the best part is these are all dynamic in nature. So tomorrow, if the application undergoes any change, you do not have to rework on all these assets because they're all dynamic in nature, powered by these HTML. They'll always be auto-updated. So to give an example, Maxwell Health is one of our customers. They have built these flows for their internal application, but here we are on the resource center, and they have put these slideshows, which are powered by Whatfix, so that anyone who is coming on their help page, they can quickly go through these slideshows. And again, they're all powered by HTML, so they do not need to really go and change it. All these are auto-updated. Similarly, one of the other advantages over here, team, is all this content is COM and XAPI compliant. So now if you have a learning management system and you're trying to think, okay, I need to build all this content to host it over there, you can in fact host all of this content in that learning management system. So here we are in a LMS. It's an open cloud LMS. There are these tutorials over here, and one of the tutorial is how to change my password. And you can see these are the Whatfix slideshows that you basically you can embed it. So now when the learner is in their LMS, you have these slideshows that can help user understand what that business process or that flow is. And once the user has gone through this, they can also go and click on See Live. So this See Live is a proprietary technology of ours, and the premise is very simple. It's reinforcement learning. So now that the user or the learner has consumed that learning on the LMS, and if they click on See Live, we directly take them to that application. And what we do is we trigger that flow. And so the same process that they learned through the slideshow, we can teach them through the step-by-step guides. So this way, there is a seamless interchangeability between the user, the learner, and all the training content that is available to them. So here you are, the page is loaded. It's welcoming me into Salesforce Lightning. And then all I do is this is the same flow that we saw, how to change my password. And now the user has this step-by-step guides within the application.
So they're going from a virtual environment or a digital environment to the actual application, correct?
That's correct, Richard. Yeah. All right. So we talked about multi-formats. We talked about SCORM compliance. We also talked about how within Whatfix, we also have the ability to bring external content within the system. So let's go back. Here we are back on Salesforce. and you see the same self-help widget over here. We are not just having step-by-step guides, but we can also have these videos. So remember, I showed about the multi-format videos. So you can in fact host it over here, and you can pull them within the application. So again, there is no overhead for the teams, the training teams, to build this content. We create them for you, and then you can host it in any knowledge library that you want. So that's how we are able to make sure that end-to-end training content creation can be taken care of. Just to close the loop, I did talk about business intelligence, and this is where our analytics dashboard really comes in handy. And again, this dashboard has been designed keeping our L&D audience in mind, because the content is created by the instructional designers, because it is maintained by the L&D teams. You want to make it extremely easy for them to consume these analytics, but at the same time make it as much insightful as possibly can. So this is the dashboard, and you can see we have different widgets. So the teams can know what the engagement is across different widgets. Self-serve, so how many times the users came and triggered that help, how many flows were run in a certain period of time, what is the overall engagement, how often the users are coming, and more importantly, which are the most popular flows that they are using. And then we give them the ability to go deep into every single widget. So how many queries were served on a day-to-day basis? What is the effectiveness of the self-help? We saw the 24/7 library of help, right? And we also saw that it can not just have flows, but it can also have text, it can have video. So here you can see that what are the corresponding views for all this different format. A very important thing, team, and this is again going back to continuous refinement. So in the self-help widget, we provide what we call as a universal keyword search. I'm in lead section, and if I were to put in a keyword like opportunity, you'd notice that all the help relevant to opportunity gets pulled up. So no matter where the learner is within the application, we are able to provide them with the entire learning library at their disposal. But having said that, they will build they will search for some kind of content that is not available. So I'm just putting in eLearning Brothers, and you see that help is not available. So what we do is we make sure that we can connect to their enterprise's email, their chat window, or their supporting tool, and make sure that the users can go and get the relevant help. But again, that's not the premise. We do not want the users to go out. So as the users are searching for unsuccessful search queries, we capture that and we let the L&D teams know that what are these queries that the users are searching for that are not available, so that now you can go and build these help guides for them. So this is really powerful, because initially we are just shooting in the dark, really not knowing what the users are looking for. But now with this feedback, you can always cater your learning programs and build the training for the needs of your users. Just on the same continuation, the task list, you can see on a user basis, have they completed the task or no? And if not, we also have the ability to nudge those users so that, hey, can you go and complete those tasks assigned to you? And similarly for flows, so all the flows that we show, we let you know how many times they were played, what was the completion rate, right? And if the users are not completing it, where are they dropping off? Are they dropping off on step 2 or step 3? So this way, we can design these programs to make sure that now the users are having the right flows, but at the same time, the overall adoption of the systems is as high as possible. So that, in essence, team, is how these analytics dashboard can really provide the guidance to make sure that they're continuously upgrading the training content for the users. I just summarize.
There's a couple questions that have come in on this. So will the Whatfix platform overlay and work with third-party providers? For example, the point of sale in a restaurant or an app created in Microsoft Power Apps. Can we say we're using this software, but we need to teach you how to use our iteration of it?
Yeah, the answer is yes. It's a short yes. So whether it's a custom off-the-shelf application that is being used within the enterprise, Salesforce, SAP, Oracle, ServiceNow, Workday, Microsoft, where it's a custom application that is being used, whether it's enterprise's IT was built or whether you have used an SI to build it for you, we can overlay on top of it. Whether it is a cloud application or an on-premise application, we can work on top of it. So it's the entire end-to-end systems that you can envision within the enterprise where Whatfix can be deployed.
Chintan, can you address data security? In other words, if you're working in an application with private information of clients and things, how you maintain data security for in the pharma industry or any industry for that matter that doesn't want their data going somewhere else?
Yeah, great question, Richard. Unlike many players in the space, one big differentiator of Whatfix is we truly are a pure overlay. What this means is we are not at all integrated to the backend of the application. We are not communicating to the database. And this allows us to nowhere capture any of the PII information that is being fed into the system. So that is number one. And that is precisely the reason why till now we are more than 500 plus enterprises. And these are like Fortune 10, Fortune 50, Fortune 100 companies who are using us right across technology, healthcare, pharma, banking, insurance space, purely because there's no integration. We are a pure overlay. The other thing is all this content creation, right, is only tied up to the HTML, just at the UI. So again, there is a think about Whatfix as a happy path, a learner's path that you are building, which is completely non-intrusive to what the data exchange is happening between the system and the user.
Can you address some organizations may have multiple systems that users have to jump in between to be able to complete a transaction or service a customer? Does it seamlessly allow that, or it only works in one application at a time? How does that work?
Yeah, another good one. So rather than me giving a verbose explanation on how that's possible, let me give the audience a live example. So here I am Salesforce. Now, most often than not, the user journey starts from one application and goes to another. In Salesforce cases, it can be connected to an HCM like Workday, where the sales rep is looking at what my quota attainment is and what is it reflecting in my payroll on Workday. It can be this connected to a CPQ application or a contract application. So let me give you an example where the user journey starts from one application. Over here, we are in Salesforce, and then we are going to then jump onto Workday. And basically the premise is I'm going to find the details. So the next step is asking me to click on details. And what we're going to retrieve, team, is the address from my Workday HCM. So from my CRM now, I'm clicking here. And again, you see there's a change in window. From my CRM, now I am on my HCM. In this particular example, we have taken Workday. And now you see the same flow continues, right? The first three steps were on Salesforce. Now the step 4 is on my Workday. I'm going into my personal contact information tab. And in a seamless way now, I'm able to go here and find the address on my Workday. And I can just go and copy it. So that's how seamless it is. We can take that user journey and weave it across multiple applications within the enterprise.
I see that you changed the colors. Can you change the fonts as well? And other style options?
That's a good eye, Andrew. Yes. So as you can see, the first three flows, first three tooltips, shall I say, were on Salesforce. So we had the blue color on top. And the moment we are on Workday, we can match it based on the application theme. You can change the font size, color size. You can put in any hex color code, any font pattern based on what the enterprise color scheme is.
From a improving productivity, can you share how Whatfix can actually automate repetitive tasks that you may not want to go through over and over again as you're completing your job?
Yeah, and that Richard, is a very important theme as we are deploying digital adoption software across more and more enterprises. We have had these L&D teams come to us and say, hey, what you're doing is great, But now, is there a way for us to complete that user action more quickly? And what we have designed is all these flows that we can build. There is a way for us to automate all the navigational steps for that user. So to give an example, if I'm a user and if I want to know how to change my language in Salesforce, you see there's a fast forward option over here. And what this allows us to do is, instead of a user clicking his or her way through all the 13 steps, we can skip those navigational steps and directly take the user over there. So let's do this real quick. I'm clicking here, it's fast forward, so it's automation. You can see my hands are up there in the air. Whatfix is going behind the scenes and it is clicking on the user's behalf, all the navigational steps. And it will only stop where a user input is required or whether there is a decision point in that flow. So here, this is the decision point where the user has to select what language they need to change it to. So that's where it stops. Really powerful concept team. And the premise is we are able to automate all these processes that the learner has to complete and make sure that we are making them more and more productive. Let me give you a couple of more relevant use cases over here. Considering that we are on Salesforce, all the sales reps will want to create a report, right? So again, fast forward, my hands are in the air. The first step is click on reports. It's automated. The next step is new report. Again, it's common for everyone, so it's automated. So again, the user has absolutely no cognition. There is no cognitive load whatsoever, trying to remember what to do, how to do. We directly take them to a decision point. So here's the decision point where the user needs to choose a report. So let's just say I want to build a report of contacts and accounts, and then again, it continues with the automation, right? So long story short, team, here's how Gartner really defines adoption. It's not about how much time user spends on the system. It's actually about how less time user spends on the system. How can we have the user come on these applications, complete that process, and have them go to the next set of tasks as quickly as possible? So as we can see, creating a report was typically a 13-step process. And with our automation functionality, we're able to shrink it into a 3-step process. So again, that's really powerful. So I'll just take a minute, team, since we are coming at the top of our hour, and summarize what we saw in this demonstration, especially from an authoring side. We saw how easy it is to create and maintain the content. There's no coding required whatsoever. We are able to select these elements in a very precise way to maintain flow accuracy. We provide these widgets. Think about them as ignition points. And again, all these widgets are extremely contextual and personalized based on the user. So they are seeing very relevant content without any logic from the editor side. A very important use case that we're able to address is bi-directional knowledge exchange. So whatever outside content is there, we are able to bring it inside. And for all the content you create using Whatfix, we are able to build these COM packages, XAPI packages, so that you can host it in your learning management system, in your content repositories, in your support repositories. Once we do that, there's also the ability for us to crawl your existing knowledge base, articles, slides, quick reference guides, whatever that you have built, and we can bring it within the application. The self-help widget that you saw, where multiple formats reside. And to layer all these things, all this multi-format content remains auto-updated. So right now, if you are always struggling to revamp the SOPs, revamp the job aids, you do not need to worry anymore. With one flow that you auto-update, all this content is auto-updated. And what this really allows us to do is substantially reduce the support overhead. All the how-to queries that were coming from the system get completely gone, and reduction is really high. Training content creation cost, right? Imagine right now how much we are spending to build these collaterals, this training documentation. But now with such simple, easy to use editor, we are able to reduce that cost for enterprises. And last but not the least, we are driving tremendous amount of productivity for the employee through the automation use cases that we saw before. So with that being said, thanks again all. Happy to take any questions from your end.
I realize that we weren't able to cover everything that you may have questions on, and for those that this has relevance for, we'd like to invite you to reach out to us to address specific use case examples so you understand how this could benefit you as a learning development content developer or as an administrator who's responsible for system adoptions. Whatever the example or use case may be, we can address that specifically and show how you can be empowered to actually build this content internally. That was a good question about whether Whatfix or eLearning Brothers has to create content. They don't. We can empower you to create content, or if you have bandwidth issues or expertise issues, we can help with that as well. So the contact information is on the screen. Please reach out if you have specific questions that weren't addressed in the webinar. And thank you for spending some time with us. Appreciate it. And thank you, Chintan and Andrew.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining us. Again, if you want to know how all of these kind of principles can be applied inside of your learning, we're happy to have like a consultation. We call it a jam session, but we'd love to look at your work and see if we can help you make that jump. You can request that by emailing Richard at rharmon@elearningbrothers.com, or you can give us a call at 801-949-8134, and we were happy to walk through that with you. Again, thanks everybody for joining us, and we hope we'll see you guys next time.
Ciao.
Thanks, guys.